Have you ever felt like the world has already decided that you can't do it? That before you even try, the silence around you has already responded? And the answer was no? As if your neighborhood says more about you than your name, and that your past screams louder than your potential? This story begins exactly there. Raised without a father, sleeping in borrowed houses. A boy looked at the cracked ceiling and was silent, but it was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of someone who makes a pact with the future. Nobody will stop me. LeBron James didn't come from privilege. Far from it. He was born where dreams often die silently. His mother, still a teenager, did what she could to survive. They moved so many times that for years he didn't even know what it was like to have a home, a place that was truly his. But even in the midst of the chaos, something began to grow inside him, a silent thought, an invisible decision. And that's what we're talking about here. Here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. Maybe you've never held a basketball. Maybe you don't even like sports. But the real story behind LeBron James' rise isn't about points or championships. It's about a decision. A moment when a boy, surrounded by limitations, chose not to be erased. When pain, absence, instability didn't define the name the world would one day learn to applaud. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover now may surprise you, especially if you've heard phrases like this: life isn't for you, accept your reality, or no one from here has ever gotten there. Have you heard this? There are people who give up in silence, and there are those who decide in the same silence. The difference? It happens inside, in that invisible moment that no one sees, but that changes the entire course of a life. And that's exactly what LeBron did. When no one was watching, no audience, no applause, he made the decision that would change everything. At first, no one saw it, but the impact. Today, it is impossible to ignore. And now it's time to go back to that moment, to the exact scene where everything seemed lost, and he decided he wouldn't be just another number, because it is in this unlikely place that the real story begins. And maybe, in some way, this story is yours too. Maybe you've already lived that silent moment when no one believed you, and yet something inside you insisted on continuing. Or maybe you're exactly at that point right now, between who the world says you are and who you feel you can be. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you the most so far. Sometimes a sentence of yours can be what someone needs to read today. And here, each comment is like an echo of courage, a reminder that we are not alone. If this type of content really resonates with you, like the video. This helps the channel to continue existing and makes this message reach more people who, like you, are looking for something bigger. And if you feel like you're part of this conversation, that this space speaks to you in a different way, subscribe to the channel. This isn't just a button. It's a way of saying, I want to keep listening to stories that awaken what's dormant in me. Your participation here is what makes all this grow. It is what transforms this video into a bridge, a beacon, a seed. Now you take a deep breath, because what comes next is the moment when everything changes. Not on the outside yet, but on the inside. And that's always where it starts. LeBron was born in Akron, Ohio, a city marked by contrasts and forgotten by many maps of opportunity. From a very early age, he learned to live with the essentials, what was necessary to survive, and that was it. The son of a single mother, still a teenager, his childhood was marked by profound instability. There was no fixed home, no stable routine, no security. There was a constant feeling that everything could change from one day to the next, and almost always it did. Borrowed houses, temporary sofas, backpacks always ready to go. Growing up like this is not only a physical challenge, it is a silent wear and tear on the soul. It is like living on the edge of the abyss, with your heart always on alert that the days piled up with absences, lack of support, structure, certainty, peace. And perhaps crueler than all of this, the lack of faith of the people around him. Not religious faith, but the faith that someone places in his potential. The kind that says, I believe in you. LeBron saw childhood friends lose their way before they even found each other. Some dropped out of school. Others were swallowed up by crime, by the streets, by the cycles that society insists on repeating. They didn't fall suddenly. They crumbled, little by little, crushed by the lack of options and the absence of real prospects. And what about him? I had everything to follow the same path. Everything. The origin, the context, the environment. The script for defeat was practically written. And he was just another name about to enter the statistics. But even surrounded by scarcity, there was an internal fire that would not go out. Something silent that still had no name or form, but that was already making noise inside. It was the discomfort of someone who feels that they were not born just to survive, who, even without concrete proof, knows that there is something greater waiting on the other side of the pain. This is where we begin to understand the root of true transformation. Because it doesn't start when everything gets better, it starts in the dark. The moment you look around and everything tells you it won't work. And yet, some part of you refuses to accept it. This is the hidden truth behind so many impactful journeys. The change is almost always internal, invisible, solitary. It's a decision that no one sees, but it changes absolutely everything over time. In that volatile environment, LeBron had no promises. He had no guarantees. What he had was an invisible choice: follow the flow of statistics or forge a new path with his own hands. And it was that choice, made in silence and without an audience, that would become the foundation for everything that came after. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the way he accessed this inner strength, even when everything around him pointed to failure, reveals something that can change the way you view your own journey. There is a key to this process that few can identify. An exact moment where the invisible becomes momentum. Where pain stops being a burden and starts becoming direction. Comment here. That makes sense to me. Because there is a subtle but definitive difference between those who expect things to change and those who decide to be the change. And LeBron, even as a child, made that choice. A choice that no one saw coming. There was no announcement, no applause, no witness. It was not made in front of an audience, but in front of the abyss itself. The world around him was still the same, unstable, chaotic, without guarantees. But inside, he began to build something else. If on the outside there was no structure, on the inside, he began to build a rare kind of stability, that of the mind. That of the silent conviction that somehow he would find a way. And when no one offered one, he built his own. That's where basketball came in, but not as a distraction, and notably as talent. LeBron didn't decide to play, he decided to make the game a bridge. That orange ball became a symbol of autonomy. Each practice was more than practice, it was an affirmation. A way of saying, I'm here, and I'm not going to be ignored. While other kids played for the fun of the moment, he played as if he were writing a new chapter in his own story. Every shot, every rep, every drop of sweat, it was an intimate conversation with the future. Nobody saw it, but he saw it. He thought, I'm going to be the best, and no one will stop me. This phrase, said perhaps only once out loud, reverberated within him every day. It didn't matter if outsiders said otherwise. The conviction was already there. And this is the point that almost no one realizes when they look at stories of overcoming. What transforms is not the talent itself, nor the environment. It is the decision. A decision made in silence, behind the scenes of the soul, where no one enters. That is where great journeys begin, in the invisible. LeBron didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for the perfect moment. He created the moment within himself. This is mindset in its purest form, when you position yourself internally, before the world even recognizes you. And the most powerful thing is that it doesn't require any external resources. It only requires a choice, a decision that, no matter how small it may seem at first, has the potential to rewrite an entire destiny. This is the hidden truth. Behind most of the legacies you admire, they didn't start on stage. They started in the solitude of a practice, in the noise of one's own thoughts, in the insistence to keep going even without an audience. And that's why stories like LeBron's touch us so much, because they remind us that the impossible is not conquered from the outside in, but from the inside out. Comment here, I'm on this journey too, because when the inner decision is true, it inevitably begins to become visible, first in the small details, in the way he walks, in the sparkle in his eyes, in the silent discipline that no one understands. Then, in the results that, little by little, accumulate until they become impossible to ignore. LeBron spent years building in silence, and when the eyes of the world finally turned to him, it was too late to doubt. He was not a promise. He was reality. He became one of the greatest players in NBA history, not just because of his titles, his numbers, or his statistics, but because of his attitude, his presence, his consistency. LeBron didn't just play to win. He played to prove that his origins weren't a sentence, that no label imposed on him back then was strong enough to contain the identity he chose to build. And that's one of the biggest revelations of his journey. Overcoming is not measured by what you achieve, but by what you refuse to lose, even when the whole world tries to rip it away. But the story didn't stop there. The boy who had nowhere to live became a billionaire. He created businesses, foundations, invested in companies and education. And perhaps most symbolically of all, he founded free schools for children in vulnerable situations. Because he knew exactly what it was like to grow up without structure, without a foundation, without anyone believing in you. The impact he has today is a direct result of the invisible decision he made back then. It's as if the echo of that silent pact continues to reverberate, only now on a global scale. And the best part? Even after all this, LeBron never had to deny his origins to affirm his success. He didn't erase the past. He built on it with pride. Today, the world calls him king. But those who truly followed his journey know, this crown wasn't given to him, it was placed on him by himself. Back in his childhood, when all he had was faith and a choice, he used pain as fuel, absence as focus, rejection as drive. This is the essence of transformation. Behind every achievement, there was a purpose. It wasn't about fame. It was about liberation, about proving that you can come from anywhere, even the most invisible corners of the world, and create something so big that no one can pretend you don't exist anymore. This is more than a career, it's a mission. And that's why his legacy transcends basketball. He became a symbol of mindset, of leadership, of reinvention. A living reminder that where you start doesn't define where you can go, as long as you make a decision firm enough to sustain the journey. And that's the point that many people don't see. The visible results that impress, the $1 million contract, the fame, the influence, all of that is just the surface. What sustains it all is hidden, it's at the root. It's in the consistency of the thinking he had back then. And that's what makes his trajectory so powerful. Not because he won, but because he knew why he was fighting from day one. Write in the comments, my origin does not limit me. What about you? Have you made your invisible decision? Maybe you are in that moment right now. No one sees, no one asks, no one applauds. But inside you, there is something that calls you. A discomfort that appears in the middle of the night. A restlessness that grows when you look at your routine and feel that you are living much less than you could. Maybe you are still surrounded by limitations. External limitations, yes, money, time, lack of support. But maybe, mainly, by internal ones. That voice that tells you that it is not possible, that you are late, that no one will take you seriously. But think about it. Who would be looking at LeBron, still a boy, preparing in silence, and imagining that that kid there would become a global symbol? No one. But he knew. He knew not because someone told him, but because he chose to believe, even without evidence. And maybe that's what's missing inside him, not certainty, but decision. The decision to believe before the world applauds. Before the visible result. Before validation. Have you been carrying around dreams that no one knows about? Do you have a desire for something so big that you're afraid to even say it out loud? How many times have you caught yourself thinking, if only I had started sooner? Or if only I had had support, things would be different. The truth is, maybe it's not about starting sooner. Maybe it's about starting now. From this pain, from this emptiness, from this point where you feel like you've tried everything and still haven't gotten where you want to be. Do you feel like you're being called to something bigger? Even if you can't explain what it is? Even if it seems absurd given your current reality? That's not madness. That's consciousness. It's your future trying to remind you that it exists, but only if you choose to access it. Because the turning point, as we've seen so far, doesn't start when everything changes on the outside. It starts when you change on the inside. When you make a decision that no one understands, but that you feel with every cell in your body. Look at your life now. Think about what you've already faced. How many times have you kept going, even when you weren't sure? How many times have you held on, hid your tiredness, kept smiling? That's not weakness, that's strength. That's resilience. And if you've come this far, if this story has touched you, it's because there's something inside you that still beats. You still believe. You still want. And that's enough to get started. So, what will be your invisible decision? What will you build in the dark when no one is watching? Because it is in this silence that great names are formed. And it doesn't need fame, a stage, or numbers. It needs a choice. A choice made with truth, with intention, with the courage to assume who you want to be from now on. Most people give up in the dark. The great ones decide in the same silence. Which side will you choose? Because LeBron's story may be unique, but the starting point is the same for all of us. Pain, doubt, invisibility, and yet, possibility, choice, path, and most importantly, decision. Comment here. My decision begins in silence. If you've come this far, it's because this story spoke to something that was already inside you. Maybe it activated a memory, a dormant desire, or even a decision that was waiting for the right moment to be made. If so, comment below. That message was for me. Just so I know you felt it too. If this kind of conversation resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. This space exists for those who need memories like this, real, profound stories that serve as a turning point. And your name could be among them one day. Leave a like too, not only because it helps the video, but because it reinforces this connection that we created here. A connection based on truth, on possibilities, and on everything that can still be born from a silent decision. There is a video here on the side that complements this subject. Click and continue with me there. The next story may show you even more about the strength you already have.